We have a stacked fucking card this weekend, guys. Arguably one of the best of the year. Well, definitively one of the best of the year. There's UFC 300, and then right behind it, you have 308. Headlined by Topuria versus Holloway. Honestly, the most anticipated fight of the year. Stylistically and name-wise, it's just perfect. All the smoke MMA. I'm going to be giving you guys my main card predictions and breakdown. I threw Geoff Neal versus RDA, the feature prelim in here. It's a good scrap, and I just wanted to touch on it a bit. So, yeah, going to be starting with Geoff Neal versus RDA, and then we're going to be ending with Topuria versus Holloway. So, first of all, Neal versus RDA. A solid. This is a perfect feature prelim because this is one of the safest bets to kind of go the distance. Arguably, we could be taking to a slow decision here, but 56% of people thought Geoff Neal was going to win, and I agree. I'm going with Geoff Neal. The odds makers for sure are as well. I know he's coming off these last two losses, but so is RDA, and I just think that Geoff Neal put up a good fight against Ian Gary, and I'm not going to say that he really rocked Shavkat a couple times or really had him in danger, but he definitely gave Shavkat, who is now the next, title challenger, he gave him his hardest test in the UFC so far. And that's for a guy like Shavkat, as good as he is. So Geoff Neal is one of the best boxers, best strikers in the division. RDA, on the other hand, I don't know how he's still ranked. It's kind of tough because he keeps kind of winning one and losing two and winning one and losing two, or, win, lose. I don't know. And it's not like he's facing bad competition by any means, but I feel like Geoff Neal is just more in it. He's more young. He's got the better striking, and he has really good takedown defense, which, if Shavkat can't get you down, then it's just like, I don't know what RDA is going to do. And, RDA does have solid grappling, and I feel like the best chances in this fight for him are to try and get it to the ground. But it's going to be really difficult to do that. And Gamrot, his last time out, not a bad performance. He lost to Gamrot, but he did get a knockdown in. Then again, Gamrot can be a bit little fucking chinny, but despite everything I'm saying, RDA is still tough as hell. He's still in it. He's very experienced. I just think the fact that he's getting a lot up there in age, he's been stronger and he's been faster in the past, higher fight IQ, more talent, and it's just, as these fighters, once they start to get older and older, especially for, the lightweight and the welterweight division, where the whole 35-year-old curse is very alive and very fresh, then, you always got to have a question mark next to this. I just think Geoff Neal, he has the power and the speed. He has good takedown defense, like I said. And he's just been looking better than RDA has, So I'm going to be going with Neal, probably by a slow decision. As much as I think that Neal is great on the feet with his boxing, he can suffer sometimes from some dull exchanges in the clinch or kind of holding against the fence a little too much, but so we could be getting a little bit of that, but I don't know. I feel comfortable about Geoff Neal in this one. So moving on, Shara Magomedov, the motherfucking bullet, versus Arman Petrosyan. I didn't get a fan poll on this one, but I do for the rest of the fight, so don't worry, guys. But yeah, so this is a nice step up for Shara. I like this. I feel like logically, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I'm trying to use big words, even though I don't know any. But yeah, man, this is a nice natural step up for Shara. I mean, Mikhail Aleksander was his last opponent, and right before that, he got the third round TKO, I believe, over someone who had just stepped up on their UFC debut. So I kind of take that one with a grain of salt. He looked good in that fight still, don't get me wrong. And he did look good against Aleksander as well. But this is just a nice step up in competition where you're not just fucking throwing him to the wolves, This isn't some guy who's kind of around the top 15 range, This is a nice step up. Arman is solid. But I do think that Shara is going to be taking this one. He is one of the best striking prospects for sure, especially in the middleweight division. He's just really clean with it. He has some of the best technique and technicality, and he has really good solid cardio. He puts out high volume, high output. And he's just really clean with the striking, to be honest. I think the only thing that is kind of holding him back the most is that he doesn't have a lot of power behind those hands. He could suffer from the lack of power. We've seen him put guys out before, and one of them I already mentioned, but it's just... It's just not as much as you would kind of expect with this young upcoming prospect, when he's hungry and he's active and he likes getting after it and he puts on fun fights, and he puts on high volume and output. He's mainly a striker and he wants to show that the daggies can fucking strike, and I love that. And we need more of that shit, But I just think we're going to find out a lot about him in his next 2 or 3 fights. And again, this is a nice, comfortable step up. Let's see how Petrosyan, because I think Petrosyan presents a problem for him. So because Petrosyan in his own right, I don't think as good, but he is good on the feet. And I think the only styles that he's really suffered with are the grappling heavy styles for Petrosyan. So you're definitely not getting that with Shara. So I feel like this is primarily going to be a fight on the feet. I feel like we're going to be getting a decision here, and the odds makers are paying a lot of respect to Petrosyan. This fight started with Shara, I think, close to a minus 200, and now he's as low as a minus 130 or 140 on some sports books. So it's just definitely putting some respect on it. And I'm really intrigued in this one. Again, I think it's going to be a decision, but I want to see what Shara can do. I want to see what Petrosyan is going to do. I think Petrosyan is kind of going to start out a bit slow, try and be a little pitter-patter, but I don't know. They're both good strikers, and I just think this is kind of a match. It's a good match for each guy. So one day I'm not going to pick Shara Bullet because I know that he's like this big prospect, and I know everyone's kind of just riding on the train, but there's better prospects, especially at middleweight, where we're clearly seeing a shift from people of the past to now. We're seeing the new generation kind of enter. I mean, look at the rankings below. You got Imavov, Barajo, Anthony Hernandez. There's so many guys even outside the rankings as well, and Shara is one of them. Middleweight, I feel like, is one of the most prospect-heavy divisions in the UFC. Tell me if I'm tripping about that, but there's going to be a day, and it might be soon, where I'm not going to pick Shara because there's still a lot of question marks, especially with the grappling, and let's see how he does when it's really getting pushed. Someone who on the other side could put forward a really high pace to kind of match his energy, and I'm curious, man. So going with Shara Bullet. Moving on to, honestly, for me, this was a really, really hard one to pick, but Ankalaev versus Rakic. 48% of fans said that Ankalaev was going to win, and 52% said Rakic. Now, I'm honestly really surprised, y'all, but I'm also going with Rakic, so I guess the people are with me. But I know that's a pretty controversial pick, especially all things considered, because Magomed is the next number one contender right now, or until he gets past this fight, so it's interesting, right? Because I feel like all of us are already talking about Ankalaev as the next number one contender. And with all due respect, I mean, because he's on an incredible win streak. He had a draw for the belt. Some people thought he won that. And there's a whole misconception with Ankalaev, to be honest, that he's some like heavy grappler or some really boring fighter. And honestly, that's not true. I mean, has he had boring fights? yeah, man. He's made me sit through some bullshit sometimes. But on the other hand, man, especially when it comes to just this generic daggy stereotype that they'll just sit on you, most of the time that's fucking true and it's awful. But Ankalaev is not that. Like, he's mostly a striker, and he can he gets finishes. He can get a knockout, he can get a sub, like he can get you out of there is the point. And I like that, and it's a nice balance. It's like, thank God that we're not just having someone that's just gonna fucking lay on you. He can put on boring fights sometimes, sorry, but I don't know. But then Rakic is just a lot more of like, he's a very, very technical fighter. He's very all-around good, very well-balanced fighter. And his technicality is honestly what's gotten him so far. He's in this top 5 of the division. And if he gets a win over Ankalaev, which I think he will, I'm feeling a 29-28 on this, that's going to put him against Pereira. I just think that with Rakic, I think his way of winning is putting on a heavy pace, putting on high volume and output, which I know a lot of the time he's not super used to, and kind of mixing it up on the feet and on the ground. I don't know if Ankalaev is really expecting Rakic to be shooting a ton. He would know that, and I don't. But Rakic does have good grappling, and he also has good striking. But I just think comparatively to Ankalaev, I think Ankalaev has more power. I think Ankalaev has more output, and I think that Ankalaev probably has the edge in the grappling. So all this considered, right? Why the fuck am I picking Rakic? Dude, I try not to pick, that gut feeling we have, guys, right? You're kind of like analyzing the fight and you're looking at this, but you just have this gut feeling, I try not to pick on that because I've learned that most of the time that just goes fucking wrong, right? But dude, when I'm looking at this, and Rakic, I'm looking at these odds, and I'm looking at my wallet, and he's saying to me, don't do it. And then I say, fuck it, I'm doing it. So I'm betting on Rakic, and I'm picking Rakic for this one because there's just something about it, right? Something in the storyline, something in the canon, dude, is telling me that I think Rakic is going to take this one. I feel like we're all overlooking him so bad, because, this fight got announced a long time ago, weeks and weeks ago. 308 as a whole did. So I had Ankalaev, honestly, until the last, week. And then, I'm like, oh, dude, I'm really thinking about it. Ankalaev is so dangerous. He's also very well-rounded in his own right. And Ankalaev has a point to prove, he knows that he should have been the number one contender for the last fight, but Roundtree got it. And, there's a lot of rumors and stories of why that fight didn't happen, but the point is it didn't happen. So Ankalaev, I feel like, knows that he has to put in a statement, because if he goes out there and he kind of puts on a snoozer, there might be just some way to fuck him out of a title shot. I think even if he did put on a snoozer and beats Rakic, I just fucking give it to him, because that's like a 10-fight win streak, and I feel like it's pretty undeniable. And honestly, Ankalaev versus Pereira is really intriguing. But all of this is a but, right? Because Ankalaev is going to want to go out there and prove a point. And I think usually he's a very composed fighter, can kind of pick and choose the shots. He has a solid fight IQ, but I think he's going to be a little more reckless in this fight, and I think that's going to cost him. That's just me shooting shit. Probably going to be wrong, but Rakic is just really good all around. So technical, and I think he's really overshadowed because of that performance against Yuri. He looked like the best fucking light heavyweight on the planet in that first round, and obviously we saw the second one when he got decked, and then he was out. And it was a really good performance by Yuri. It was a really great fight. I think we learned a lot about Rakic and Yuri in that fight, to be honest. But Yuri came out on top. Again, great performance by him, but Rakic, man, was in that fight till the end. You know what I mean? And Yuri, I think, is the second or third best in the division. If Ankalaev beats Rakic, now we're really going to start to question if Yuri's above him or not. But Yuri, I feel like, is right behind Pereira. I just think we're in the timeline where Pereira is the champ and the guy. Kind of like a DC Jones or a Holloway Volk. Like, there's a clear, I feel like, kind of guy right there who could have been the champ. A Colby Usman as well, who could have been the champ, but, we're in the Pereira era, so that's it. So I see Rakic winning this by putting on the pace and the volume, mixing it up, and kind of like, and just catching, just catching Ankalaev in all the right ways. I just see him taking a 29-28 decision. Is this going to be a super fun fight? I really don't know. I feel like we're either going to get someone super exciting or we're going to get someone super boring and no in between. It's just kind of how it goes with these kinds of matchup and these kinds of fighters. I don't know. So I'm hyped for it. I really have no idea. I'm worried, but I'm going with Rakic, and I think a part of that too is I just think the run that Rakic has had in the UFC is objectively just less impressive. Even before the Prochazka loss, like, I feel like objectively all the hype was just more so on Ankalaev because he was just getting better performances over arguably better competition. So that as well. I get why everyone's picking Ankalaev. I get it, and I'm gonna fucking eat my words. It's gonna be tough, but I'm going with Rakic. Anyways, moving on. So up next, we have Lerone Murphy versus Dan Ige. This is a really fucking exciting fight. Got promoted to the feature bout, I believe. 50-50 from the fans, but I'm going to be going with Lerone Murphy on this one. I had Dan Ige, honestly, kind of in the weeks leading up to it, but over the last few days, I kind of changed my mind on this. So I'm going with Murphy. I think Murphy is going to need to put forward high volume and output. I know he could be kind of an overly technical fighter at times. That's primarily his style. He can even be slow at times, but I think he showed really big improvements against Barboza. And if that Lerone Murphy enters this fight, then that's how I think he's going to take this. Getting a bit after it a bit more, showing a bit more grit, getting the fuck after it. But Ige, though, on the other hand, he looked great in his last fight as well. Now, you can kind of question, Diego. He had he had 2 or 3 opponents. He had a bunch of weight cuts that he had to do, and obviously that probably wasn't his best. But, like, I don't even want to say that, dude. All right, I just fucking did, though. God damn it. But Ige looked great. Like, I think even on any normal night, like, I think Ige would have put that great of a performance, and I think it would have been just as competitive, Ige just does better stylistically against more so, like, relentless fighters. And when it comes to Murphy, he's not that. But because Murphy is so much more of just a technical fighter, and he has good grappling, and he's solid on the feet. Ige has the power advantage, though, and that's the thing that you got to consider, but Lerone Murphy is undefeated, so we don't really know if he could be taken out. If he could be taken out by a guy like Ige, because as much as Ige does have the power, and as much as Ige is a perfect guy to have around like that 10 to 15 range in the rankings, you got to question where the future of Murphy's going to go and where the future of Ige is going to go. You know what I mean? I just think styles make fights, and I think that Murphy just has the edge all around in this one, because if Ige goes out there and fucking makes his scrap, and he has to really, really control the pace and the pressure and just the overall control of the octagon, if he can go out there and do that, I really like his chances in this fight, and I think Ige can win by like a 29-28. And dude, I thought it was he really put himself on the map after 303, you know what I mean? And really raised his stock. And if he can go out there and get a win, especially over a guy who, can kind of be one of the future really big contenders for the featherweight division, and Lerone Murphy, undefeated, rising star from the UK. If he can go put on a masterclass, dude, not even a masterclass, go take his lights out or get a 29-28, dude. I mean, and I like, Ige's chances in the second and third round. I think Murphy's probably going to take the first, but I think as the fight progresses, we're going to see Ige get more aggressive, bite in the mouthpiece a bit and just get the fuck after it. So this is a really, really hard fight to pick. And the betting odds are pretty close as well. So actually, no, they got way bigger. Wow. This fight started as it really close, but no, they've gotten way bigger than I thought. Okay, anyways, but Ige just can't let Murphy get you on the fence. He can't let him hold you against the fence. He has to try and get in the pocket. Ige is going to try and have to exchange blow for blow. And I think if the fight boils down to that kind of fight, I think Ige has a really good chance of taking it. But I just, all this is like hypothetically on paper, because this is the problem. I don't think that's how the fight's going to go. I think Murphy's going to control the distance, control the cage, control just the pace of the fight and the flow. He's going to want to mix it up on the ground. Up next, the highly, highly anticipated Whittaker versus Chimaev. I mean, imagine like having this fight on any fucking card, and then the fight immediately after it is Topuria versus Holloway. I mean, it's good as it gets, y'all. And this is as high stakes of a non-title fight as it could be. So Whittaker versus Chimaev, I made a whole fucking 15-minute video rant breakdown of this fight. So I'm going to keep it pretty brief. If you guys want to see my more full-length breakdown, check out that video. But yeah, so how I really think this is going to go, I'm going with Robert Whittaker. Bobby Knuckles. When I'm really trying to break down this fight, how is Chimaev done? As dangerous as Chimaev is, because he is. He's one of the most relentless, explosive, just entertaining fighters in the UFC right now. And like, there's so many question marks with him, but one thing that we really do know is that, I mean, he's fucking legit. It's so easy to forget because of all the shit he does outside the cage and all the pulling out. And like, again, I'm going with Robert Whittaker for this fight for a reason, you know what I mean? But Chimaev is super dangerous, but how is he done against the real top dogs? Usman arguably took 2 rounds off of him. Burns took him to an absolute war, and some people even thought that Burns won. And yes, Chimaev won those fights. Yes, he came out on top. And yes, he had really good moments in those fights, you know, and that's why, again, he's still in it. And that's why he's a big favorite for this fucking fight against Whittaker, you know. I would say most people are picking Chimaev. I mean, what's the fan poll here? 62% of people think Chimaev's going to take it. And that's totally fair. I would have honestly thought a bit more. But who are the guys that Chimaev is taking out super quick? Gerald Meerschaert, Li Jinliang, Kevin Holland, you know, guys of that nature. And there's nothing wrong. Each of those guys in their own right, I get that it's kind of a spectrum, but each of those guys in their own right are really good fighters. But Gilbert Burns, you know, especially at the time in like, what was it, like 2021, some shit like that. I mean, he was one of the elite, very top 5 worthy. All right. And then you have Kamaru Usman. Even last year, I mean, he came off the couch after almost a year layoff. And, well, not almost a year. He fought that fucking March. But after months and months of a layoff, and he came off the couch on like 10 days notice, and he gave Chimaev just... I mean, Chimaev just had so long to prepare for that fight, and he just didn't look... All right. I told myself I wasn't going to fucking ramble. Anyway, so how do I think that Whittaker is going to do this, right? Because Whittaker is just... First of all, this is at middleweight. Chimaev's first real test at middleweight. How I think Whittaker is going to take this, I just think he has the advantages in the striking. I think he has the advantages in the experience, and I think the takedown defense, like 82%, something like that. I mean, I think that's going to hold up, because Chimaev's takedown accuracy... only 46%, you know, kind of spams the button a little bit and was just kind of shooting to shoot or whatever the fuck, and can't always get you down. But that's the thing, his relentless pressure, his high output, not only in the striking, but also just in the domination he tries to get you into on the ground. But at the end of the day, I just can't see him getting a submission over Robert Whittaker, and let alone I can't see him getting a decision, especially at 5 rounds over Robert Whittaker. So all things coming into account, I think Chimaev could take him out via knockout round 1 or round 2, because Whittaker has been shown to kind of have a vulnerable chin in the past. It's been interesting because he's been a lot more aggressive in his last couple fights, which I've loved to see, because he learned from the DDP fight. He even went out and said afterwards that he just wasn't ready for the relentlessness and the pressure and just that fucking insanity that DDP brings. So, and I think I think we've seen Whittaker like literally grow in his last couple of fights against Costa and Aleksander. And Aleksander is pretty stylistically kind of similar to Chimaev. Obviously, they're very different in a lot of ways, but point blank, I feel like it's kind of like, you know, around the same ballpark. So risk taking, you know, because he's just this undefeated fighter, so many question marks. I mean, he's going to go out there and he's going to fucking just go like a bat out of hell in that first or second round. It's going to be interesting to see if he doesn't do that, like if he's aware that he wants to kind of go 5 rounds or last 5 rounds, but I don't think that's the case. I think he knows his best chances are in that first round or 2. I want to see what the live odds are after that first or second round, you know, and Whittaker is still there on the other end. Chimaev's looking more and more gassed. I'm not saying he's just fucking depleted and dead by the 3rd round, you know. He's still like hung in there with Burns and Usman, but he didn't look great, you know, and I just think 5 rounds against a guy like Whittaker, who has so much experience in that field, and he has great cardio as well, and Chimaev, again, just does not. That's his biggest weak point. It's just, if this fight goes 5 rounds, which I think it will, I think it's going to be a 49-46 from Whittaker. I think Chimaev's going to take the first round no matter what the fuck happens. And then I think Whittaker, round 2 will probably be really competitive, kind of close, but I think Whittaker will edge it out. And then I think rounds 3, 4, and 5 are just going to be a masterclass by Whittaker. And that's what I just can't see a sub or a decision from Chimaev. I just think Whittaker is too prepared. He's ready for a fucking war. He's too prepared for this type of challenger and this fight. I mean, he's been locked in on Chimaev for months and months now. And yeah, that's how I think this fight's going to play out. So moving on to the main event. I mean, how fucking excited are we for this one, guys? Topuria versus Holloway. I mean, we have the villain versus the hero of the UFC right now. And Topuria is playing the villain role so well, to be honest, y'all. I mean, I'm not a fan of the guy. All right, and obviously when you're looking at the thumbnail, you're seeing that, wait, Holloway getting knocked out. What the fuck are you talking about? Because Holloway, dude, is one of my favorite fighters. I want him to win. I openly just don't fuck with Topuria. I don't like just the whole vibe of fighters that want to retire at like 30 and then just like they just want to win a title defense, move up the weight class, and then retire. I hate that shit, dude. I hate that shit. I want like an investment, you know what I mean? And like Topuria, though, despite all that, he's really selling this fight, and he's really fucking good inside the cage. I mean, it's insane to think that, like, when he first came into the UFC, he was known for just being such a dominant, like, he had, like, this insane sub streak going on. And it was just, like, he was known for being a really elite grappler. And now, people are talking about him as one of the best strikers in the UFC. And, you know, this is such a fun fucking matchup, especially stylistically, because you have Holloway, so much experience, all right, and he's also a really, you know, Holloway has solid takedown defense. You know, most of his fights don't ever go to the ground, and that's for a reason, but he's literally just one of the best boxers, one of the best strikers in the UFC, versus Topuria, who is also not only one of the best strikers in the UFC, but just overall one of the most well-balanced fighters in the UFC. Oh my God. I'm about to bite my fucking tongue off the way I just said fighter in the UFC like 8 times. Sorry. Anyways, but I don't want to say this is like a nightmare matchup for Max, because I don't think it is. Like, the fact that Holloway is such a big underdog, I feel like is ridiculous, because like I didn't even have a lock for who I thought was going to win this fight for months. You know what I mean? I only decided on Topuria like a few days ago. This was so hard to pick for me. 1 week I would think Holloway, 1 week I would think Topuria. Like, I don't know, but I think the odds are ridiculous. But both of these guys are as elite as it fucking gets, like I'm saying. I mean, both of them have proven to go 5 rounds as well. They both have good cardio. I would give the cardio advantage probably to Max, probably just because we've seen it more. Another thing I love about this matchup is that we're getting prime versus prime, right? This isn't Holloway at the end of his career, and this isn't Topuria like before he had some big test. Topuria just knocked out Volk. And Holloway is only 33. And the only person he's really lost to in the last fucking decade is Alexander Volkanovski and Dustin Poirier. You know what I mean? And Poirier was at lightweight. So Holloway is still in it. Holloway is a top 15 fighter of all time. And he is going to skyrocket even higher than that if he beats Topuria, just for so many reasons. And Topuria in his own right. I mean, imagine knocking out Volkanovski, and then your immediate next win is, I mean, I don't know how he's going to beat I don't know how he's going to beat Holloway, to be honest. I would say, well, that's not true. I wrote in the fucking thumbnail, I think he's going to knock him out. Yeah, I think Topuria is going to knock him out. I probably should just cut to the chase. I think Topuria, I could see this fight going the distance, but I think if it goes the distance, I think Holloway is going to be the one that wins. But Topuria, and I could see Topuria taking him to the distance, kind of winning 3 or 4 of the rounds, but I just think that he's going to get a knockout. Why do I think that? Because it fucking hurts, dude, all right? I'm like frustrated even talking about it, because I'm rooting for Holloway so hard. I really want him to win. It's just that feeling in the air, dude, all right? It's that feeling in the air where it's just like, nah, dude. Something doesn't seem right, all right? I just don't think the MMA gods are that nice. It's just when you look at Ilia, dude, he submitted Bryce Mitchell, who is a great grappler. He outstruck Josh Emmett, who is a fucking powerhouse and a marauder, all right? And he knocked out Volkanovski, who is not only the best featherweight of all time, and I understand that he took it on 4 months, and that whole thing is fucked up. But at the end of the day, he knocked out Volkanovski, who's one of the best strikers in the UFC, even now. So I think Topuria is going to throw in a few takedowns here and there. I mean, it's an MMA fight, you know what I mean? And Topuria has such good grappling, and he definitely has the edge in the grappling in this fight, especially offensively. So I'm curious to see how much he attempts to try and take it down, but I could only see that kind of going down in maybe like the later rounds, like 4 or 5. And if Holloway's piecing him up, then obviously he's probably going to resort to that. But I think Topuria is going to take him out, man, in like the first or second round. And I know that's insane because Holloway has such a good chin. Holloway has arguably the best chin in the UFC, all right? Especially we just saw how Cheeto kind of got rocked by Figgy. Like, I feel like Holloway has the best chin in the UFC. I know there's a ton of other guys that are up there for that fucking award, but I'm going to be going with Holloway for that one. And, dude, I picked him, All right, and I was so proud of this pick too. I had such fucking. I felt like, you know, the meme where the guy's like looking, he's got all the fucking math equations going on and shit, dude. I sound retarded, but that was me. All right, for Holloway versus Gaethje, because I picked Holloway to win that, and that was when like I was already picking Holloway when the odds were like him at like a plus 200 before they even were cutting down. I just like, when I was breaking it down, I had Holloway in that one because I knew that he wasn't going to get chinned. At the end of the day, I knew that going into that fight against Gaethje, the best chance that Gaethje had was to take his lights out, and he wasn't going to take Max's lights out. So then what are you left with? You're left with Max just piecing him up, because if Holloway's not going to go down, he's just going to frustrate Gaethje. He's going to piece him up. He's going to control the distance, yet fucking go after you at the same time. And Max looked great in that fight and just executed that shit. So even all that considered, right? I'm going with Topuria in this one. I think Topuria might knock him out, because I'm not saying that it's hard, right? Because does Topuria hit harder than Gaethje? Probably not. Like, I feel like that's just even ridiculous to say. But we're at featherweight, right? And I know that Holloway can go back and forth between featherweight and lightweight pretty well, you know? But he did kind of bulk up for lightweight. And you got to wonder, is that going to affect him at all going down to featherweight? Maybe it won't. But you're definitely, when you are cutting, you are vulnerable to getting a bit chinnier. And again, Holloway has proven his whole career that he is not that. He's very, very, very strong in the chin department. But it's just, I just don't know, dude. I just have this feeling, because Topuria is just so good on the fucking feet, and I could just see him taking out Holloway via knockout. And it hurts. I really hope this doesn't happen. Like, in a dream world, Holloway either knocks him out, some insane finish or some shit, or he pieces him up 50-45. I would be so fucking happy, all right? And Holloway was like one of the first fighters I was really into when I first started watching the UFC. So just to see him after all these years, now he's back again fighting for the featherweight title. That's someone that's not Volkanovski. It's awesome. I love it, dude. It's been a minute, dude. Holloway's just been beating up all the contenders. Beating up all the top contenders, and, you know, they kind of avoid. I don't know, dude. This is the fight of 2024. It's so intriguing. I could really see it going either way. On the fan poll, more people have Holloway winning than Topuria winning, and that's totally fair. The first round, too, like the pointing of the ground, Holloway has gone on record and said he's like, I'm not doing that shit. I'm the baddest motherfucker, not the dumbest motherfucker. And thank God, all right? Because, like, that's just dumb fight IQ, because you're immediately, like, the fact that Topuria is doing that and planning it out the first, like, 10 seconds pointing the ground, you already know he has some fucking Aldo versus McGregor shit planned, all right? Even if Holloway fell into that exchange, if he does that, I feel like that could be, like, the downfall. And it's hard, right? Because Holloway, that's his instinct, because he wants to fucking piece you up, all right? He knows how elite he is on the feet, and just, like, he doesn't like to back down from a challenge. But, dude, I just got a bad feeling if they actually do that, because I feel like that's going to be some McGregor versus Aldo shit. I already fucking know it. So I'm hoping that Holloway sticks to his word and avoids all that shit. All right. We could still have a super, super fun fight. All right. And that doesn't make Holloway a pussy just because he's fucking not just being retarded with his fight IQ. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. I'm hoping that first round point in the ground shit, that Holloway just leaves it be, and we're still gonna get a great fight anyways. But oh my god, that part is really scary. And if I think Max exchanges in that, then I think that's where part of that round one knockout might come from. But Max's biggest thing here, you know, his biggest challenge is not getting caught with the power shots, and just utilizing his takedown defense like he has in the past. I'm trying to do all the MMA math, is what I'm about to say. So Volk beating Holloway 3 times, right? And then Topuria knocking out Volk. I don't see, like, there's some people saying that immediately should have the answer to the fight be like, oh, well, of course Topuria is going to knock him out because he knocked out the guy that beat Max 3 times. I just don't think that's how it works. Styles make fights, and MMA math is fucking nonsense. So this fight is honestly as 50-50 as it gets, not just on this card, but really anything. Like, I can go back and forth on this one all fucking day, but this is the fight of 2024, and I'm going with Topuria. I could see a close decision, and Topuria gets it. But at the end of the day, I think I could see a knockout. And it hurts. And it doesn't even make fucking sense. But I don't know. And I can't believe that I had Holloway winning the Gaethje fight, and now I'm saying this shit. But I'm trying not to be biased. You know what I mean? I'm trying to be objective about it. And it is what it is. I'm rooting for Holloway, though. It's going to be a great card, guys. Thank you so very much for tuning in and listening to my dumbass ramble. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. All the Smoke MMA. Who do you guys have winning? Let me know your predictions in the comments below. And I appreciate you guys. I'll catch you next time.